All right, I think I'm live. Hello, hello. It's Wednesday, 2 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. So it's time for Wild Wellness Wednesday. And if you're seeing me right now, then you are a member of the Get Well, Stay Well Naturally Facebook group. And I'm delighted that you're here. If you're scrolling, then hang on. Don't keep going. Here's what I have in store for you today. I am going to be talking about trusting your inner voice for optimal health. Trusting your inner voice for optimal health. Really digest that. Like, say it to yourself again. Trusting your inner voice for optimal health. So I am I think part of my mission on the planet is to, I know it to be true, is to help women sort out their own inner wisdom from the current, the mainstream current that is our medical system. My mom, I'm actually just making this connection right now. So if you are listening, Mom, I think you'll appreciate my story. My mom speaks all the time about how she wanted to breastfeed, but but didn't feel like she had the resources and the support to do that. And my grandparents thought she was crazy because they didn't breastfeed their children. So that's just one story. And she did breastfeed me, and I think for 3 months, she said. Um, and I think she has a lot of sadness over not keeping going with that. But I'm giving you permission to let go of that. Um, but so that's just one example. She also speaks about her experience in labor and wanting to not sit and lay in the bed, but to be up and around, and that she felt forced to lie flat in the bed. I could go on, and that's only like my experience, my experience onto the planet in the first 9 months to 3 months. But I think it created a consciousness in me. And so she and I think, could share easily 10 more examples. She always talks about fluoride, not wanting to give us fluoride as children and having to fight with the dentists over that. She talks about, there are others. So I just want to honor my own ancestral experience through her and thank her deeply for beginning the process of standing up for her own inner voice, because essentially what she found out later was that what she was fighting for was actually the best for me, for my own optimal health. And since then, she has been a role model for me in really investing in her own health and doing whatever she needed to do to find the resources to care for herself in opposition to the mainstream medical system, because what they often have in their tool bag is something related to a pharmaceutical. And I didn't imagine that this was going to be a soapbox, but I feel strongly that it's time for me to speak out a little more clearly about how I stand. And then you can take it or leave it. And I understand if you decide to leave it. And if you remain here then let's grow and transform together. Because what we've experienced over the last 2 years has done nothing but show me that it's time to let our medical system crumble, to give all due respect to the people, the dedicated people that have gone through a medical system that's essentially run by the pharmaceutical company, and that that influence runs their education and their entire lens that they see health through. So that was not a part of my talk today in my notes, but I am at the point of really changing. I am pivoting my entire business. And so you're beginning to see an example of that. So, what I'm talking about today, trusting your inner voice for optimal health, is all about this. So if my mom hadn't trusted in her own inner voice, then she would never have raised the questions over the years of whether these things they were recommending for her as a mother were made sense. So she's questioning, she's having an impulse, she's having an inner voice that she then has a choice. Do I trust it? Do I explore it? Do I go against the mainstream? So, even so recently as the last year, my mom had a personal inner voice to take a certain action. And she had a group of women. I may have told this story on this Facebook group before, but it's a really important story among women, among sisterhood, that which is a huge pillar, a cornerstone for my work. So my mom, um, she had a group of women, about 8 women, I guess, that she was really close friends with, and they would meet together monthly, I believe, sometimes more often than that. And she was the only one who decided to follow her own inner voice and not get vaccinated. And as far as I can see, that's a personal choice. And so instead of accepting her personal choice, this group of women essentially created an atmosphere where then she chose to let them go from her life, but a very painful process for her. She met with these women for 32 years. And um, wow, I never imagined going here today. But when it comes to trusting your own inner voice for optimal health, then you may be asked to stand up to some pretty swift currents. And those currents are so strong, not swift. They're strong in in a way that we've never experienced. They're strong in a way that they're dividing friendships, they're dividing families, they're dividing communities. And it's perhaps you feel like we're through it. And I understand that. And I still think that there were a whole host of people out there, including dear friends of mine and women in my community, that had an inner voice not to do something and chose to do it anyway because of the currents. And so, this entire talk is about learning to trust the inner voice and recognize the fear, the shame, the ridicule, the the anger that comes your way, the harsh words, the anything that puts that, if especially if you have wounding around not fitting in, around fitting into the circle, like being a part of something, then to listen to your inner voice that sets you outside the circle still is not going to be an easy process. And so even if we take it out of the current, pandemic paradigm, say you really don't want to go on blood pressure medicine, and your doctor is telling you that um, going that your blood pressure is high and that you're putting your heart at risk and perhaps a risk of stroke and these other aspects that are completely real. That's that this is an aspect of the training that our medical doctors have gone through that I'm completely, I bow down to that level of knowledge that I don't have. I'm not a medical doctor. But when you receive a recommendation, how deeply are you able to assess whether that recommendation ends there and you just go with it, or you have an inner calling to do a little more research, a little more evaluation, a little more investigation for yourself, and that actually not following that inner voice further degrades your own self trust, self confidence, and um, optimal health, frankly. So, um, I think no, I know that this aspect of my communication to you is exactly why I'm here on the planet. Because of my mother's experience and because of my own observation with women over the past, well, 25 plus years, but it's an awakening that's happening on the planet. And so if you are hearing this awakening along with me, then please reach out. Let me know what you're feeling, especially if you are in the healthcare field. You consider yourself a health leader, a yoga teacher, a massage therapist, fitness instructor. There all of us interact with people like that. Those of us in the healthcare field or in the health field, health and wellness field, um, who may actually have a broader, more awakened look at what the paradigm of what's unfolding. And so, because if you do feel this way, then it's time for us to join hands and continue to get the message out and help others to awaken to their own inner voice, to their own um, like spark, their own light, their own inner knowing, and like really trust in that. And so a couple of other things that came through me around this. I had the absolute blessing. If you're watching this, Tara, I had a visit from a dear friend yesterday, and we went and visited the river behind my house. She went for a swim. I just was like, I did not go. But we came back and ended up sitting in the sun and really reflecting on this. And I had no idea it would go the way it's gone so far for this talk. But when I was taking notes during our conversation, we were sitting in this small orchard that my husband and I planted a couple years back, and the trees, we planted plum trees, and the trees haven't actually produced fruit yet, but this year there were so many blossoms that I'm like, ooh, maybe this is the first year they're going to produce fruit, and it actually brings me to tears. So we're sitting there among this orchard, this little orchard, 4 trees, beautiful, and I'm sitting there with my friend Satara, and I was just reflecting on nature and the inner voice of these plum trees. Like they, of course, they don't, there's a different sense of consciousness that they have, but as a part of nature, they don't question when it's time to bloom, when it's time to grow bigger, when it's time to bear fruit, when it's time to go to sleep for the winter. They just know. There's a knowing. And I believe that we have the same access to that inner knowing. And that inner voice is what I want to help women trust in, their own inner voice, where that comes from, and what is actually true to them in relationship to their own optimal health. And so we were talking, Satar and I, about what we feel when we spend extended time in nature and how that accentuates or strengthens my own inner voice. And some of the things that were coming through us were very easy to pinpoint. It's like I feel deep peace outside, deep peace. I feel joy, ease, expansion. Like these are some of the words that were coming through us. I feel rejuvenated. I feel, but then there's this, I feel connected. I feel, but then, okay, so this is the essence I really want to communicate. Then there's a quiet inside that can be present outside that may not always be present in other settings. And this quiet, where the rest of the chatter tends to fall away, the more you can tap into that, the better. And the more you can tap into it outside in nature and get a sense of what it feels like, what it tastes like in your system, the more you can tap into that same essence in any setting. I'm faced with a decision. Do I take the medicine? Do I not take the medicine? And so this connectedness, this oneness, this taproot that I referred to it in my email, this this sense of a taproot is like one source that grounds you, like this one main root. And then there are these tentacles that come off the taproot. But if this taproot can be your connection to your body through nature, then that is what strengthens your inner voice. And so before I kind of close out this Wild Wellness Wednesday and leave you with these thoughts, I do want to share that I am still going on my camping trip, my women's wilderness retreat, September 9th through the 14th. I'm going. So I want to extend that invitation again to any of you who are on the fence and have not applied and wish to come, because now's the time. Planning for the summer is just, it's all going to fall into place. Your summer is being planned for you, or if you're not planning it for yourself. And so if you know that you would like to experience this trust in inner voice, this is the whole reason why I'm putting on a wilderness trip for women, is that to be in the elements, to risk this sense of rawness and expansion in nature is what develops your inner voice. At least that's what develops my inner voice. So, and has developed my own inner voice for years and years and years and years, and even more so in the past 3. I'm just going to glance at my notes here for a second. Oh, I love this kind of piece, but it goes into a whole nother offshoot. So I'm witnessing adolescence. I'm witnessing teenagehood. Is that a word? Teenagedom. I'm witnessing a teenager and remembering my own teenage years, and that's where we are as a family. My daughter's 13. She's this amazingly grounded, self-assured, strong woman, like approaching woman, it's like teenager. So, um, but I was reflecting on that period of time in your life and how influenced you are by um by the environments around you and who you hang with and what you get interested in and who your mentors are and who your teachers end up being. And so much in adolescence is about understanding your own identity. Yeah, it's like figuring it out. Like, where do I feel like I fit in, and can I go there? Um, and so I was reflecting on this period of time in her life and what it was like in my life, and where I was able to, I know that my own inner voice was not developed. No, and I was certain, but there was a, it was developed a little bit. Like, I knew I loved sports, knew I loved being a part of teams. Like, that was clear at a very young age for me. And, but I also knew I wanted to fit in to the popular group. And not that caused me to do anything I didn't, I was pretty, I had a pretty beautiful teenage, adolescence and teenage years. I have to say it didn't feel, I mean, my parents divorced, that was a whole nother thing, but socially and academically and physically, I feel like I really like grew into myself and was pretty self-assured and just feel so blessed that that was actually my reality. And I'm watching that a bit in my daughter, and I'm feeling blessed about that. But then I'm not sure where I was going with that, but to just really watch the continuum. Oh, okay, where I was going with that was about identity and about our own inner voice and the role it plays in our evolution of our own identity, what we identify with. So, did I identify as an athlete? Yes. Did I identify as a part of the popular group? Even, I mean, that's even silly to mention, but yes, like, you know what I mean. Like, I was an athlete, I was a good student, I was, you know, um, and, um, yeah, I could go into a whole nother stretch on that, but I identified with a certain, uh, like, I had an identity that I was reaching for, that I was wanting to fit into, but so your own inner voice. Okay, so if you're not tapped into your own inner voice, this is the clear piece that I want to share. Then it's very hard for you to step out of an identity into another identity, because since then I actually did not want to identify as an athlete. And so I rejected that identity that I once had. And so that inner voice, I'm just evolving. Now, the polarities of that could be a whole nother talk, y- uh, but to be able to see that your inner voice is a continuum, it's like not just, it brings you through things, in and out of things. And that's okay. And that's, I feel like the role of your inner voice in your to bring you to optimal health, that the inner voice is connected to the soul, and the identity changes over time. The soul does not. Because the identity is more a part of the personality, it's more a part of the changing world. So, all right, that's it for today. If you're just seeing Wild Wellness Wednesday for the first time, welcome. If you're catching this on the replay, say hello. Let me know you saw it. Let me know what you liked. Let me know what resonated. I'm here for you. Take care. I'll be here next week, 2 p.m. If you're interested in the wilderness trip, the Women's Wilderness Retreat in the Adirondacks, September 9th through the 14th, please apply. I'm going to put the link in the comments. Take good care. Bye-bye.